I'm Mike Walker.
I'm David Patrick.
We are Dads on Books.
Dads on Books. 2 minutes later. But we are dads on books. We're addicted to books, we sit on books, and we even talk about books.
Welcome to another episode of Dads on
Books.
Hello, and welcome to Dads on Books, episode 41-ish.
Ask.
We are back today with another author friend who we have met via the internets, who is...
It's Dan. Oh, wait. No, it's not Dan.
Dan.
No, Dan's not here, is he, Dan?
There's no Dan.
Gutman. Dan Gutman.
Yakarino.
Hey, he played right into our...
Yes.
So, Chris, it's Chris, not Dan. So, Chris, you are our very first non-daughter, non-Dan guest ever on our show.
Wow. All right. Very good. I feel quite honored. I feel very honored.
And no one can ever take that away from you.
No.
Yeah. So for those of you just listening and not watching, and I hate to say this, Grabenstein?
I say Grabenstein. My father said Grabenstein, but then I was on a panel once with a German author, and I said, "How do I pronounce my name?" And he went, Grabenstein. So you get rid of the. From that time, it's Grabenstein. Rhymes with Frankenstein.
Okay, well, if you had to consult a German expert to learn how to pronounce your name, I don't feel as bad that I didn't.
Well, my father got Grabenstein. So I was like, I didn't like the sneering. And it means, I think, in German, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it means gravestone. And one of my first books for kids were ghost stories. And one or two critics thought I made up my last name so I could write ghost stories. No.
That's awesome.
See, so if you don't know, I'm the guy that does research. So I did a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
And one of the things I read was that it meant gravestone, but I only knew that because you said it in another interview.
Ah.
When I first read it, I thought maybe it was going back to German, maybe of Munich origin, possibly 14th century, late September, early October of Oktoberfest, and it meant grab a Stein.
I actually did that when we had a VW bus when I was a kid for the family and had that tire in the front, remember?
Yes.
And
Was it green?
Well, I think, no, that was white. I had my own green
Okay.
Volkswagen Bug, which I called Lyman because it was a green lemon. But we had this family bus, and I drew a cartoon of a guy holding two Steins, and it said Grabenstein. So his name, great minds.
That's awesome.
When I was
I love it.
15.
Cool. So we are all on board with the Grabenstein, but it's a little early in the morning. So just coffee for me. Thanks.
Very good.
And me too.
We get a little espresso. I'm in New York.
Really? Oh, and with the pinky. I might
Oh, that's harder to do with a coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I almost want to just pour this on my head, but I shan't.
And I'm in Chicago, where it's actually been warm, so I don't feel like pouring hot coffee on me.
Yes, warmed up here. The piles of dog poop snow are starting to melt and reveal all their secrets on the sidewalk of New York.
I love piles of dog poop snow. Did the New York City Bureau of Tourism approve that message?
I think the Department of Ambiance. Turdism. Yeah, the Department of Turdism. Oh, I
love it. Well, hey, we are Dads on Books, obviously. And Chris, you are a very successful best-selling author. So we should get into books. But before we do, I have a question for you.
All right.
Mike did mention earlier that he's the research guy. And in his research, he discovered that you have done improv before.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your improv, because I have an improv background as well. But tell me about yours.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know I was doing it my whole life when I was a class clown and stuff. And I came to New York City and I fell in with a group called the First Amendment Comedy and Improv Troupe. And we used to do shows Fridays and Saturdays. And I did another one at Folk City. We used to do a comedy show at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sundays there. And Bruce Willis was in my troupe before he
Wow.
became Bruce Willis. And
Who was he before Bruce Willis?
yeah, Bruce the
Bruce
bartender.
Willis?
He was
Just Bruce.
yeah, I was Chris the banker. He was Bruce the bartender. I worked in the bank by day to pay the bills, and then raced down to Greenwich Village to rehearse and do improv every afternoon. And Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams, when he was in New York, he loved doing improv, and he'd find out where we were performing and come down and do shows with us, which that was fun. So yeah, I always credit improv for being the basis for everything else I've done in my life. Because when I wrote advertising, I was basically doing improv based around products. Like Dr. Pepper was one of my clients, and when I write, I still use improv. When I go on my school visits, I play an improv game with kids where the kids give me some words when we start the assembly. And then they help me pick a protagonist and antagonist. And what does the protagonist want? And why does the antagonist want to stop him? So I'm going to make up a story right here on the spot. And then I go, I haven't written anything all day today. I might have writer's block. Thank goodness I packed some emergency words. So I'll start telling the story and pretend like I get stuck and pull out one of the words. It's like based on an old improv game of fill in the blank. And I keep the story going with that word. And what the kids take away is when you're working on your first draft, just go. Just let your imagination run wild, get it all down on paper, and then go back and make it better. Then I tell them how Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's library I worked on for 3 years and rewrote 50% of the entire book 8 different times. So they kind of leave going like, oh, yeah, there's no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Dan, you just answered about 7. I'm sorry, I said Dan.
Dan Gutman!
No, okay.
Get out of here, Dan.
Oh, boy. No, I was going to say earlier, the reason I didn't make the joke. The reason why I introduced you as Dan is when Mike and I were first corresponding with you and planning to talk with you, I kept saying Dan by accident. And finally, I realized there are more authors in the world besides Dan's. And then I was just fine with Chris and I just let it slip. But Chris, you just answered like the next 7 questions I was going to ask you. Because in a lot of the books in your works that I read, I was going to ask, do you use improv in your writing process?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I kind of make it up as I go along. And I usually start out with an outline, like I know where I want to go. Which is kind of like with improv, you got to do the first line. Last line might be the bit, or it freezes where you do physical things and the audience yells freeze, and wherever you are, you got to start up again. So I sort of always plot out the big tent poles of my story, but I relax within the structure. That's what I tell my wife. It's like I give myself, a 2-act structure, a 3-act structure, and I kind of sometimes the characters start taking over. And to me, because I did spend a lot of time doing theater and improv in college and when I first moved to New York. And a lot of writing is kind of acting out the whole play in your head. You get to play all the characters. And when you start developing a voice for those characters, they might take you someplace where you weren't expecting to go.
So did you get a copy of my notes ahead of time? Because you just answered, well,
now we're out of time.
I didn't know
Let's
I have
go.
to have a dad joke. Wait a minute.
Chris,
Did you hear about the guy? Did you hear about the guy who invented lifesavers? I understand he made a mint. Okay.
I love it. Okay, well, that's all the time we have, Chris. Thank you so much.
You're always be sure to tip your waiters.
No, one of the because when Dan Gutman was on, I asked him randomly. Mike and I both have a performing background. We both are actors. I began my career with improv. I moved to Chicago to study at the Second City and study at Improv Olympic. So when you said earlier that improv is sort of, you've been doing it all your life, and then after you studied it, you continued to do it in your life and career, I totally can identify with that. But we asked Dan Gutman if when he was writing, he would say the dialogue of his characters out loud. And not only did he say he didn't, it had never even occurred to him. So it sounds like, in your writing process, because you have a performing background, that you often would do that. Is that true?
I don't do it out loud because that would drive the dog and my wife crazy. But I do it inside my head. I once saw a poster for, I think it was for a playwriting festival or something, and it showed a writer hovered over his typewriter but his head was cut, and it was like a flat, and there was a stage up there. In his head was a
Oh.
stage with all these actors bouncing things off. And that's kind of I'm like, that was the best visualization of how I feel when I'm writing. The characters are dancing around up there, and I'm totally into what they're doing. And sometimes I'll write with these headphones on so I can listen to music, mostly like soundtracks to movies. And my wife will come in and say, "We're going out to dinner with Kath and Dave this weekend." I go, "Uh-huh, uh-huh." And then Saturday will come, "Are you ready to go to dinner?" "What? Where are we going to dinner?" "I told you." "No, I wasn't here. I was on Route 66 with these two brothers who are, so it's, yeah, it does kind of take over your brain and kind of possesses you.
It's funny that you say that because I actually had a feeling while I was reading last night because, okay, very short backstory. I technical difficulties all day today. Yesterday, I had a colonoscopy. PSA, if you're over 50 or close, go get a colonoscopy. It's
I've had
good for
several.
you, but the stuff tastes like crap.
The night before.
Pun intended.
Pun intended, it really does. But I got home and slept for a while. I woke up around 7 and I was sitting there and I was like, all of these thoughts going through my head. And I started reading one of your latest books. Gonna have to try and not do this wrong. Miss Money Pickle, not Miss
Pennypickle.
Pickle Money. Pickle Money.
Pennypickle.
I screwed it up anyway, didn't I?
Yes. It's always alliteration with me, but Miss Pennypickle's Puzzle Quest.
So I had not read it yet, and David had said that he had read it, and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed all of the other books, and I know this is one that came out more recently. I was like, I kind of want to read that, so I sat down last night and started reading it. My long story that is now turned long that meant to be short is that while I was reading it, all of that was happening in my head, like you said when you were writing. All of these characters were in there on stage, like playing this play. And so when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, how weird that that's how you wrote it. And that's what I was thinking last night. It may have been the anesthesia still wearing off, but
But James Patterson coined the phrase that I guess that is what happens. We like to write stories that get a movie projector going in a kid's brain. So it's like they're to see the story as it goes along. So you'll see I don't spend a lot of time describing the dew on the grass or the
right.
or the even what the characters look like. A little bit more in Miss Pennypickle because the fact that Benji is kind of chubby was a little important to his character. But I usually don't describe my main characters that much because I want the kids to see themselves in the characters, especially my main character. You don't want to limit them with over a lot of descriptions, and that's the part people skip. It's I always leave out the parts no one wants to read anyhow.
Well, I did read the entire book. I loved Miss Pennypickle's Puzzle Quest. And I wasn't on any kind of anesthesia or any other influences while reading it. Yes, I really loved the book. And one of the things I loved as a child when I was reading is what you two were just talking about. I loved having the imagination of the movie and painting the picture and all of that in my head while I was reading it. And as Mike said earlier, I don't do any research. And to the point that I barely looked at the cover. Okay. And I'll tell you in a second why I'm glad I didn't. But I don't read the reviews. I don't read what the book is about because I like to experience the book with a completely clean slate. And
that's why we call him Clean Slate Dave.
Dave.
So I asked an important question early on to myself. What is this book going to be about? Where is it going? And it made me really curious and really want to discover where it was going. One of the reasons I'm glad I didn't look at it is once you get into the travel of the boys, spoiler alert, there are two brothers and they go traveling. I have been to the Midpoint Cafe.
Oh.
Have you? Did you do research? Did you?
No,
Were
I
you?
didn't. Google makes research a lot easier than it used to be, and
Yes,
you can
and less
kind of.
expensive.
I once did a chase scene for something I was working on, I think with Patterson, and I just put myself in the Google map and where you can look around and see what you would have seen, and then move down the block and look around. So you can kind of go just about anywhere now with doing research. The book was kind of based on a trip that my big brothers and I took when I think I was 15 because I wasn't driving yet,
Mhm.
and my two big brothers were, and kids, parents, would your parents let you do that? I guess these days you don't just, on a high school break, get in the car and drive from Tennessee to the Grand Canyon, and we'll be camping along the way, Mom and Dad. Thanks. See you later.
See you later.
We'll be back by Christmas, we think.
And this was before cell phones, etc. So they were
Yeah,
just like,
no cell
hey, if you
phone.
find a payphone, give us a
Yeah,
call.
give us a call. And
Yeah.
Don McLean's Apple Pie had Goodbye Miss American Pie had just come out
Oh wow.
because we didn't have satellite radio, so you had to keep tuning the radio every time you left
Yeah.
an area. So
Yeah.
that was kind of based on that road trip. So I have traveled some of it, but I have not done the Route 66. I need that shirt.
That's so cool.
Well, I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. My parents lived in New Mexico for a while. So the Midpoint Cafe in Adrian, Texas is right along that drive. And you mentioned pies also in the book.
Yes.
In the Midpoint Cafe. My parents would pre-order their pies.
They're very famous for their pies.
Yes, and
Wow.
they would pick them up on the way to and from New Mexico to the home in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And when I finally moved from Los Angeles back to Dallas-Fort Worth, my dad and I stopped there and we had lunch there and talked to the owner. So I was so excited that you had that in this book, and I looked at the cover and go, oh, well, there it is. So cool.
The first book, I've finished now a second Pennypickle book.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the first book where they go to the Pop Soda Ranch, and my
Yes.
wife this Christmas she got me a 6-pack of disgusting soda pops.
And
Okay.
did you,
Look over there on the shelf over there. Yeah,
there they are.
2 of them. I've not tried buffalo wing yet, and
Did you have the
ranch
beef jerky?
I think I started out with peanut butter and jelly, and I thought that would be the best, but it was terrible. It tastes like peanut butter or jelly.
What kind of jelly was it?
I nondescript soda pop jelly. I think
Aha.
I want the other one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I did do a lot of research. There's a lot of great books, a lot of tour guides about Route
Mhm.
66. And I had like 6 of those going in here at all times, and a lot of Googling was going on.
a whole lot of
Googly.
Googling going
Yeah.
on. I
That's-
love it.
I think that's something that I liked about this book in particular was that you did kind of take into account more of the technology that's happening now, like with Google and everything. I don't know how to say this, but some of your other books made me think more about. I think the first Lemoncello one, even though there were phones and stuff, it made me think of. And I think you probably did this on purpose by not letting them have their phones in the library. But for some reason, I had this written down somewhere that I thought it was cool that you took like this, almost this historical view in this story of taking kids back to a time when they didn't have the technology. And I just really loved that about that. But then in this one, I was like, ooh, this is great because you're showing how like Google can be used in a really good way, like with the
Yeah.
GPS and finding your way around. So maybe a side note, but
Well, that's always like a struggle for those of us who write for kids these days is how do you get the parents out of the picture?
yeah,
And how do you get kids on your own? Because I grew up at a time where in the summer, the parents said, see you at dinner. You
yeah,
get on your bike and you rode somewhere and you met up with your friends and you maybe went to the playground. Or I lived in Tennessee when I was from ages like 10 to 20. And so there was woods across the street from our house and we'd go play. So I wrote my fourth or fifth, I don't know which one it was, for kids. The Island of Dr. Libris is all about a kid who has to go spend his summer at a cabin on a lake where there's no Wi-Fi, no DVD, no DVR, and he breaks his phone on the first day. And the whole story is about what do you do if you have nothing left but your imagination.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorites.
That's awesome. One other note before I let David talk. I don't have the book or my phone in front of me. I read it on my phone because I bought it yesterday. And I'm so glad I did, because you pepper the book with little things. Like, you mention Lemoncello in the book. And because I did all this research, you mentioned Tilt-A-Whirl, which I really want to read. But I started thinking about oh, now I have to really pay attention to see if there's more of those little nuggets of information or little Easter eggs.
There are, in fact, some kids find them. Whenever there's a snooty school, like in Treasure Hunters, Shine, Crossroads, it's called Chumley Prep.
Mm-hmm.
And some kid once asked me, why you call it Chumley Prep? And it's all based on, I was in college, I was in Harvey, the play Harvey, and Dr. Chumley is the psychiatrist in that. And that name is always stuck with me. It just sounds like an upper class place if it'd be Chumley Prep. So I think Chumley Prep's appeared in 7 different books.
Well, I was going to ask you, Chris, once again, you anticipate all my questions, because I noticed Chumley mentioned a couple of times, and I didn't do any research to see, is Chumley Prep real or not? Because it is in Crossroads, and
it is. It's in the Crossroads. It's in, I think, in one of the treasure hunters I did with James Patterson. They get sent to a boarding school for a brief respite. It is in Shine.
Yes, I saw it in Shine.
And I think it's in Mr. Lemoncello's library too, because Charles Chiltington was kicked out of it was kicked out of Chumley Prep.
I was trying to remember. I'm like, I swear I know I've heard it. And all of the books you mentioned, I haven't read yet. And I was like, I know I heard it in one of these books, though.
Yeah, it's in a lot of them. And my wife teases me. I always have people emerging from the shadows. I guess that's a bad habit I have. Someone always emerge from because she always reads stuff before I send it to anyone else. And I see someone emerge from the shadows. First reader, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, really, really quick question: Were you attracted to her first because she was JJ?
She was actually Jennifer when I first met her. She is a off-Broadway musical comedy performer. She was in some show, Nonsense. I think she was doing Nonsense here in New York. And there was already a Jennifer, and a very frightening lady who said, you better come up. As in Actors Equity and stuff, you have to have a different name. You can't have the same name. That's when she became JJ. She was very funny, and she was a voiceover performer. And who knew that she was good at editing books? Turns out she has such a short attention span that she lets me know when things are boring. The first book I ever wrote never got published. And she read the first 2 chapters, I'm sure you did a lot of research about these mountains in South America, but the story doesn't start till chapter 3. You're boring me. And she was absolutely right. So it turns out she's a great editor, especially for kids' books, because the kids, I got to get their attention all the time. And then she's so good at it, we started writing books together. We wrote Shine together, and we've started a whole new series, this whole Stinky Stories series for younger readers. And what's really fun, because as an old disc jockey, old actor type guy, we get to do the audiobooks. And that's what JJ was doing for a long time as an audiobook narrator. And when we do the Stinky Stories, we do actually read those out loud here at home to answer one of your earlier questions, because we go back and forth and we have the character voices. And does that really sound like what Stinky would say? Is that what Mr. Stuffington would say? And so the final pass is reading those books. They're a little shorter too. They're 8,000 words, but our final pass is reading them out loud to each other.
That's awesome.
That must be fun to see. I read Jack and the Beanstink. And it's very different because it's also very fast.
Yes.
And it's what reminded me of improv, because it's fast, it moves quickly, it goes.
And it goes.
It is yes and, yes and, yes and,
Exactly.
yes and. And I thought, okay, this is definitely, there's some improv influence in there.
Definitely got a loose improv structure to it. And Mr. Stuffington's always trying, wait a minute. And with our imagination, anything is possible. So that's what we are trying to do with those books.
I wrote down imagination utilization.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wrote that down on page 3, because this just the imagination is all over the place.
Yes.
And it was really, really cool.
Yeah, those are fun to write because we do. Those are probably the most loosely structured books. We still give it a three act structure with beginning, middle, end. Something bad or good happens in the middle, and things decrease and stuff. So all that's in there, but it's really a great improvisational spirit to those. And JJ did a lot of improv. I guess I never saw Nonsense, but apparently there's a bit. The character she played, Sister Mary Amnesia, who has
Ah,
a
yes.
marionette, uh, does an improv thing with the audience every night. And so she has a great experience in that too.
That's awesome. I read two of the Stinky books, and they're terrific. They really are.
Oh, great.
But it's funny how different they are. And this is something that I was wondering. Like, obviously, those were written with JJ. You write by yourself, and then you've written with James Patterson. I can't remember if you've written with anybody else, but how do you like approach those things differently, or do you always go in the same kind of structure of it?
They're all very different. I also did this new Myrtle Jr. Sleuths on the Loose
Mhm.
with G.T. Carber, who's the guy who created the whole Myrtle thing. So he's got a wicked sense of humor and a great sense of how to do logic puzzles and deductive reasoning puzzles. And he sort of leaned on me to come up with how do we tell a story about these characters. Uh, and he sort of blocked out the puzzleness, like what's going to happen over the course of this book. And then I sort of took that and we went back and forth. With JJ, we worked together in the same way I used to do advertising, which when you're in advertising, they team up a copywriter with an art director. And someone once described the job as looking at the soles of your partner's tennis shoes for 6 hours a day because you sit around a table with your both have your feet up on the table and going, what if we did? Oh, you bounce ideas back and forth. And then always with my art director, since I was the wordsmith, I say, okay, let me go write a first draft. So I would take whatever idea we both liked, I'd go write a first draft, then we get back together and refine it and bounce it back. So that's kind of how JJ and I do the Stinky Stories. We brainstorm.
Hmm.
Usually it starts with a title like Cinder Smella is the next one coming out. And so what's going to happen in Cinder Smella? Well, what if she did all the work around the house? Her two stepsisters, when she leaves, are like the house is a pigsty. And so they want to do everything they can to sabotage her upcoming wedding. So she has to come back and clean house and cook for them. The place is just a mess. So we sort of
Funny.
bounce those ideas. We'll take a couple of dog walks together. We'll say, and then you know what happens, and then you know what happens. And then I'll typically sit down and write first draft of, let's say, 2 chapters, because that's going to be like 1,000 words. And then she'll do it and she'll act them out. I can hear her in the other room reading them out loud, and she'll make her notes. We do that. That's kind of classic co-authoring. We never have done the in the movies, the guy playing the piano and the lyricist is right there, and they're like making it up together as they go. I've never seen anyone actually work that way. James Patterson, he's an idea machine. There's actually a CBS Sunday Morning episode about him, and he goes and shows the reporter he has credenzas, and he pulls them out, and there's like 500 file folders, and each one of those is an idea for a book or a
Wow.
story. And so he'll come to me and say, hey, Chris, I got this idea. A kid wants to be a stand-up comic. I know you used to do, work at the comedy clubs and stuff. You want to work on that? And I say, yes, because I did improv, and you always say yes to everything.
And
and then he sends me an outline. So he'll send me like a 30, 40-page outline. Like in chapter 1, we see this kid. He's at something called the World's Funniest Kid contest, and he's sweating bullets, flop sweat, because he can remember the punchlines to all of his jokes, but not the setups. And then chapter 2, we reveal that not only is he flopping, he's also in a wheelchair. He's a kid who wants to be a stand-up comedian who can't stand up. And then chapter 3, he goes home and so he'll block it all out. Then I'll execute against his outline. And as we've done 37 books together, he gives me more freedom to like veer off the outline. The first book I did with him, I remember his editor said, you can't change anything in Jim's outlines. And I said, yeah, he wants this to be a collaborative thing. So I might say, oh, look, I changed it a little bit. And he said, yeah, that's good. So I'll send him 10,000 words a month. He'll look at them, call me up one day after I sent him 10,000 words. Usually with editors, you're waiting months and months to hear back. He calls me back because the best calls are great, keep going. The worst calls are you have a pen and a pad of paper handy, that means there's going to be a lot of notes. So yeah, so we go back and forth and like 4 times, and then he'll do the final draft by himself. I remember when iFunny came out, like Zitz and Useless. I don't remember calling those characters Zitz and Useless. Oh, Jim did that. Okay. So it's a fun back and forth that we do on those.
So you actually do read the books you guys do together because you want to see what it ended up being.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of them are illustrated, so I always wanted to see what the pictures look like. We'll write out descriptions of what we think the picture is going to happen, and those ones usually we write some jokes or one-liners into the captions. So yeah, it's always a fun experience.
I love it.
Join us next time for the intriguing conclusion of our interview with Chris Grabenstein. Until then, happy reading.